everyone. I was just watching some videos on YouTube and saw something like just a taste test of something gluten free, and it put me back to like a discussion I saw online a couple of years ago about how somebody was saying that all this gluten free stuff was just a fad, and people pointed out certain health things. So I figured I'd weigh in on what I thought of it. Honestly, I'm kind of glad there's a more variety and better tasting versions of stuff that's gluten free, vegan, sugar free, fat free, dairy free, whatever. Partly because, a lot of these people with these health issues or just with these dietary restrictions, um, they're before companies realized, hey, we could market to these people and probably make a lot of money, which is really the point of it, well, basically, they kind of got the short end of the stick. They were kind of screwed. Um, but now you can actually get gluten-free stuff that tastes good, apparently. I mean, Cheetos apparently makes a gluten-free white cheddar thing. I haven't tried it myself. But I'd like to because I like things that are white cheddar. They're usually very tasty. Cheetos is usually very tasty in general. But, there is the downside of people are going to latch onto it as a fad diet, which is really fucking annoying. That being said, oh well. Not much I can do about that, okay, you want to be an idiot and do a fad diet, you think it's going to do something, fine. Just don't, push it on your kids or anything, because, unfortunately, you do that, you may risk screwing them over physically, because they actually do need those nutrients. And you might as well let your kids figure out what they do and don't like. My parents actually let me figure out what I do like to eat and what I don't like to eat. As a result, I actually do eat a lot more vegetables than the average person, I think. Or at least more varieties. I mean, there are ones that I hate, and I still can't get it through my husband's head that I cannot stand green beans. I don't like them. I never liked them. I've tried them on multiple occasions in multiple different ways. I can't stand them. I don't like them. I like asparagus, I like broccoli, I like carrots, I like celery, I like cabbage, I like Brussels sprouts, I like peas. Trying to think of what else I like, because I don't want to count corn and potatoes because they're not really vegetables. I like radishes. Any leafy green I like. I haven't met a leafy green I don't like. I like turnips if they're done a certain way. So, I'm picky, but I'm not that bad. And if I am not listing a vegetable, it's either because I didn't remember I like it, I don't like it, or I've never had it. Oh, parsnips is one I like. But, yeah, and I do like onions except for the texture, but that's besides the point. My point is that, don't go griping about companies when they start doing gluten-free, vegan, sugar-free, whatever. They're marketing to a wider audience, And besides, it's not like you have to eat those if you're not on those diets. Or even if you are, you can be an idiot to yourself and eat them. Eat the non-gluten-free ones or eat the non-sugar-free ones, even though you're really not supposed to. It's your body. You put into it what you wish. And I can point out that, it's not against the law for you to eat them if they happen to taste good, too. It's this weird thing, and, the gluten-free is still kind of new, so there's probably going to be a lot more yucky than yay products out there, and it's going to take time for it to kind of go through and all that. But, times are changing. And, eventually one of these days they're actually experimenting with, vegans, you're going to love this, meat that's never been alive to begin with. They're working on artificially growing meat in a way that you don't have to kill anything. Holy hell, is that fucking amazing. And I'm not talking like tofu or anything here. I'm talking like meat, like beef, pork, chicken, that sort of thing. That is genetically identical to the animal, but you don't have to kill the animal for it. You can think about that. One, While not the biggest source of methane, it is the biggest natural source of methane, not to mention it'll deal with deforestation. We won't have to have as many cows being raised. We can use the land for farms, for vegetables, for things like that, which is really great. We could grow meat that would technically be illegal to sell in various places because of what the animal is. I mean, people can, of course, you won't have to kill anything, which is very nice. I approve of this. The meat will probably be safer. There won't be as many chances for parasites and other infectious things. Let's face it, pigs do have a slight chance of trichinosis. Cows can give you tapeworms sometimes, or salmonella. But anything has a risk right now. Even with vegetables, I mean, a lot of the salmonella outbreaks were happening because of vegetables, of organic vegetables, I shall point out, because they weren't washed properly, they weren't treated properly. Yeah, there is that little downside with organic farming, which, by the way, isn't organic farming, it's old-fashioned farming. I will stick with modern as best I can. But, if somebody puts organic food in front of me, I'll eat it if it's good and if it's been washed, because fuck it, it's food. If it's tasty, it's in my belly. That's kind of my rule. But yeah, a lot of this, of course, the downside right now with the artificial meat is it's kind of expensive. So we're not going to be seeing it in shells for a little while, but if they do get it to a cheap, tasty, safe process, I could technically call myself a vegan. And I could say, oh, I only eat, lab-grown meat. Why? Because nothing's killed, which is actually kind of cool, because it would be nice to actually have guilt-free dinners. I mean, the one thing even I can't quite hurdle over myself is, you do kill animals, but you do need meat to survive, or at least get the proteins from meat, which a lot of vegans are better able to do than I am. I have way too much of a picky palate. I couldn't go vegan if I wanted to. And, at the moment I understand that, life is a cycle. Things live, things die, things eat other things. Hell, plants eat our rotten corpses, and we eat living plants, so it's not like there's no death in the food chain. That's just kind of the way it is. But times are changing. Times are, eventually we'll eliminate at least some death from the food chain for us. I mean, plants, I think we're kind of screwed on that. We're still killing plants. So I think Janice could eat meat then, because, technically this meat was lab grown. Watch, somebody's going to find an excuse on why you shouldn't do it. It's like the fucking GMO thing, by the way. Anyone who says, GMOs and lab grown, but shut up. Just because it's made in the lab doesn't mean it's bad for you or they're trying to poison you. You're being fucking paranoid. GMO is essentially selective breeding with a test tube. That's it. They don't normally inject fish DNA into a tomato, as far as I know. I could be wrong, but hell, if it makes the tomato bigger, stronger, better able to survive the elements, last longer in the fridge, I'm fine with it. It's obviously not going to make me sick. You want to know who first did genetic engineering? Mendel. A fucking monk. He did it by hand, the hard way. It's just cross-pollination. That's it. That's all it really is when you think about it. It's just done on a microscopic level compared to a broader, a macroscopic level that we use to do it. And you know what? You don't get to bitch and moan because those organic bananas are technically genetically engineered too. Bananas aren't supposed to have no seeds. Supposed to have big hard seeds. Those carrots you've been chopping on are supposed to be purple, not orange. Yeah. Don't even try the whole fucking, GMO thing with me, because I'll just point out, that carrot's GMO and that banana's GMO. No, they say no. No, they're genetically modified. They just did it the hard way. Genetically modified just means it's been bred differently. That's really all it means. Technically, My cat is genetically modified from his parents, my little Petey Pud, and he's so cute for it. The GMO thing. I now understand the antibiotic thing, though. I understand that. So the no antibiotic thing, I actually understand. You don't want resistant bacteria. That's a bad idea. I still need to get my husband to stop buying antibacterial soap, except that's all there's fucking available for hand soap. So it's either I gotta start taking it out of the shower, which I'd rather not do, or I'm screwed. That being said, and our shower soap is not antibacterial. It's Dove. It's moisturizing instead, which feels really nice. But the antibiotic thing, I do understand. I understand why people are afraid of all this stuff. I mean, even the pesticide thing I can understand completely. I mean, let's face it, you're really not supposed to be eating those. But basically it's a pick your poison kind of thing. But you have to know what the poisons actually are. GMOs aren't a poison. And you've eaten GMOs before you started getting on this kick, and you're fine. You never thought of that? But, eat them after, and nothing's gonna change. I mean, I know there's some politics behind it that are really shitty. I'm just going with the science here. The shitty politics is another thing altogether. That's another thing. Separate the political side from the scientific side. There is a difference. The science doesn't rely on the politics, but there are times where the science is affected by the politics. Like the climate change thing. And, climate change is actually happening. I'm pretty sure of that. You wouldn't have these psychotic little hurricanes if we weren't. I mean, there are times where hurricanes, become more frequent in the area, but I'm sorry, the levels we've been seeing, there's something else going on. I'm not going to blame the tsunami on it because that's more tectonic, so that's a little more iffy in the global thing, but let's turn to a ramble on science in general, but it's just like my random thoughts on these things. And also, should I throw in an obligatory scream at the anti-vaxxers for such a mellow video? I still don't like them. And they seem to get crazier with the more stuff I see from them. Especially on Tumblr, but Tumblr, like my feed, usually I get the debunkers. I get the ones screaming, I'm like, no, you're a fucking idiot. So, that's good. That actually makes me get some faith in humanity. But wow, I mean, there's stuff in there like, they are claiming nutrition now. Well, I'm sure you already knew about that because people have talked about it. But they're claiming nutrition. Really? Nutrition. No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, nutrition helps keep you healthy, but it doesn't fight disease. It makes you stronger so you don't get the diseases. In a way, it keeps your body from shutting down completely, but the vaccines help because some of those don't get affected by the nutrition. An overdose of vitamin C isn't going to keep you from getting a cold. I don't understand disease denialists. I mean, come on. What did you think made you sick, got you out of school when you were a kid? And okay, you think vaccines cause autism? Obviously, you had one when you were a kid. How come you're not autistic, dumbass? People have actually pointed out, you'd rather have your kid dead or autistic. I decided to go, you know what, the science side did, good job, but they're not going to listen to that, so I'm going social justice on them and screaming at them. Because, that's the only thing you can do at this point. I even get mad at my friends if they say, well, they have other good ideas. I did this with Bill Maher, and I nearly, ripped their head off, he's still wrong. They realized really damn quick that sort of thing makes me glitch very badly. I mean, that's probably, like, the one thing I will scream at you for. I've even mellowed out on the death penalty. And I used to scream at people for that. I'm very anti-death penalty. Just so you know. Honestly, I think we can use the prisoners for slave labor instead, so it's not like it's a purely altruistic thing. They're already in jail. They've already lost their rights. Might as well use them. You know, waste of good flesh. Waste of good muscle. Jokes aside. But the anti-vax thing really gets under my skin. I think the reason it does is, it's a fewfold. One, it's anti-science, and I'm pro-science, so, yeah, there's that. But, you know, I don't get this way about climate change. I don't really get this way about GMOs. I just kind of facepalm and snarl a little bit, at worst. You know, all the other stuff, I kind of just laugh at. Even creationism, I laugh at it, because it's so fucking stupid. It's there in black and white. It's been proven time and time again. Even the flat earthers, you know, I laugh at them. I really laugh at them, because, like, really, of all the things you could latch onto. So, but, you know, probably doesn't help that, you know, they're anti-science, I'm pro-science. The other thing is that, you know, it is killing kids. I mean, measles is back on the rise because of the anti-vax movement. That disease should have been fucking gone, practically. And it's even worse to get when you're an adult. And in fact, I'm really glad I got a measles vaccine. I won't get it, which is good. Hopefully I won't get it. And, you know, hopefully the people around me were smart enough to get a vaccine for their kids, because I would not want to catch it from a kid. I think another part of it is, you know, the fact I am autistic. It feels insulting to me that they're saying that autism is so bad and it's the parents' fault for caring about their kid enough to keep them from getting sick, that you're better off getting these potentially fatal diseases instead of being autistic. I really think that is part of it. That's kind of what it feels like the advocates are saying is, your kid is better off dead than autistic. It really does feel like that to me. And I know the parents aren't thinking this. I'm pretty sure the advocates aren't actually thinking this. I don't think they're that malicious. Because child death tends to look really bad on any resume. But it feels like they're saying that. And to be perfectly honest, that actually insults me, because they're saying I should be dead rather than how I am now. Because my mother cared enough to get me vaccinated. I think it's also the show of ignorance. Like, nobody's willing to look at the real facts on autism. Autism is 100% pure and simple genetic. That's it. That's the only thing that causes it is genetics. Not vaccines, not the measles, not the mumps. It's genetic. Nothing else causes it. It also feels like parent blaming in a way. You know, like, you got your kid vaccinated, now they're autistic, it's your fault. Even with genetics, you cannot blame the parents, because they can't control what the genetics do. My parents sure as hell couldn't. In fact, not until I was diagnosed did they start looking to see, well, where did this come from? Who in the family has even the slightest trait of it? They traced it to an uncle on my mother's side. At least one instance of it. I don't know if they traced it to anyone else. But, you know, otherwise they didn't know where the fuck this came from. And, you know, a lot of parents probably don't see it because someone who is autistic but high functioning may not even get diagnosed unless you look really carefully. I think part of it is people are doing a correlation causation thing. Well, I'll go into that later because that's really why I'm mad at it. I just shook something, don't mind me. But that does feel like part of it. My husband. Sorry. Poor guy's stuck at work. Well, I think a third part of it, this is kind of a big fucking part of it, is another part of why I get offended, I don't even know how many parts this is that it was based off of a scam. Wakefield scammed them. He didn't give a shit. He didn't care about those kids that he had stuck. He was scamming. He was lying. He was making false tests. Why? So he could make some money off of another version of the very same vaccine that he was vilifying. Think about it. You know, he literally didn't give a shit. And now people, celebrities, not scientists, but a pundit and a starlet, from what I understand, Bill Maher and Jenny McCarthy, are advocating this bullshit years later. Now, and technically Wakefield's not even a doctor anymore. He's been disbarred. He cannot practice in England anymore. This is where it started, England. Thanks, British! Couldn't you have executed him or something? I'm sure you could pin a few kid deaths on him. And, you know, now England's really feeling the effects, and we're going to be next in a few years. All because he just didn't... He didn't care. He wanted money. That was it. So I think, like, this is like a perfect storm for me. Because of that one little personal factor. Like, everything else isn't really personal. Even my Gnostic theist dad is not a creationist. He is firmly in the science camp. In fact, he considered the God particle a chance to prove God existed. Because, you know, he thought the Hadron Collider was cool. Okay? And, you know, he even, like, made a joke, like, people are freaking out about a polar shift. He's like, well, all that's gonna do is screw up compasses. That's it. It'll be funny. That's really all there is to it, is it would be funny. And that's, you know, that was my dad. That is my dad. So I can't get mad at creationists because, to be perfectly honest, I know they're stupid. I've seen the smart version. I've seen the smart Christian, so to speak. I can't get mad at the GMOers as much, because the one person in my family who believes in that, nice woman, but she's kind of a dippy cousin. You know, the flaky cousin that we all have that's really fucking awesome, but you kind of sit there facepalming sometimes at them because they're not quite all there. Granted, none of my family is all there, but you get the idea. I love her to death, but she's probably the most strange person in the family sometimes. Not the flakiest person I've ever met either. I've known flakier than her by a long shot, but, you know, she's just that one relative where you're like, you kind of just shrug. So I can't get mad at them as much. Well, I can, but not as badly. I can't get mad at people who believe in spiritual stuff because that'll heal you as... Well, actually, no, they're kind of in the autism. I can't get mad at people who believe in the death penalty because a lot of that is from hurt, from anger, from anguish, and I understand that. You know, it is a human desire, and there are some people where maybe, you know, which is why I'm pro having suicides in jails too, by the way, because some people, they do need to go, but I'd rather it be by their own hand of their own choice, rather than, you know, us doing it. It is more of the government-mandated murder part that I'm really not for with the death penalty. I mean, there were some people that, holy fuck. Look up Carl Panzram. Jesus. I both feel horrible for the guy, but at the same time, I would not want to meet that man in a dark alley. Pure evil, but the world made him that way. Well, the world and himself. There's also... I can't even get mad at climate change denialists because I can kind of see where they're coming from. Even from a government standpoint, they don't want to lose money. Okay, that's understandable. And also there are some ways where you can kind of misunderstand the information. I could see where they're coming from with that. But the anti-vaxxer, any anti-medical science thing really gets under my skin. Because this is like people's lives are on the fucking line. I don't like homeopathy because of this. I don't like disease denialists because of this. And the anti-vaxxers are like on the top of my hit list because of the personal connection I have and that I'm someone who's affected by it. I know a little bit how this works. My cat is being like... cat Pete's weird. But... Starting to think he has autism. I can't blame vaccines on that. I can just blame him. If you're gonna play Godzilla again, you're in trouble. What is with you? But the anti-vaxxer thing just really pisses me off. I mean, everything else, I can kind of just go, okay, just walk away. But the minute you're an anti-vaxxer, I will destroy you. I will just... I can get along with fucking Tea Party members, okay? You don't have to like Obama. I'm fine with you. I'm one of the few people on YouTube that doesn't go out of her way to make fun of the Tea Party unless they're doing something particularly dumb. And even then, it's just the ones doing it. Because, I'll say, you're an insult to your party, right? I don't care about a lot of that stuff in... Like, even gay rights or any of the phobias, essentially, I don't get as flippant over because in the end, all that shit's superficial and we really shouldn't care about it at all. Everyone should have equal rights. The end. That's really my answer to it is everyone should have equal rights. The end. Say anything you want. Everyone should have equal rights. The end. But this anti-vax thing will royally drive me in fucking sane. And there's so much on it. And, the more I think about it, it also feels very ableist. Like true ableism. Because it's saying a disability is worse than being dead, essentially. And it kind of... I should also point out that when I was a kid, the word autism was a big taboo. You didn't want your kid diagnosed with fucking autism because people automatically went to either the silent kid in the corner rocking back and forth or to fucking Rain Man. By the way, I hated that movie. Everyone says it's a classic. I fucking hated that movie. My mom made me watch it and I just sat there squirming and insulted and I was a kid. What does this tell you? My mom, she was actually confused why I was so sad. Like, because nobody I know is like that, Mom. Like, even before I knew what a stereotype was, I knew that was a fucking stereotype, okay? So, I did not like that movie. I still don't like that movie to this day. But it was a big taboo, and the reason Rayman was a big deal is because nobody ever showed an autistic person like that compared to the Rocking Kid in a movie before, and haven't since. What does this tell you? Anyone who complains about a woman playing a male-to-female transsexual, I had to deal with fucking Dustin Hoffman as an idiot savant. Shut up! I still don't have my role model in the movies yet. At least you can kind of pretend. I'm serious about that too. So I literally want to script like, yeah, name all the autistic people in film. Dustin Hoffman? Yeah, and he's insulting. Um, this is turning into a bit of a rant, but it was a taboo, and it's only recently that people started saying autism instead of Asperger's. Asperger's is actually a substitute for autism in a lot of cases, and the difference is Aspies don't have a speech delay, autistics do. I had a speech delay, I am an autistic. Even school psychologists, they refuse to put autism onto my sheet. They would say ADD, they would say retarded, they would say depressed, they would say absolutely nothing's wrong with her, they would say Asperger's if they were feeling generous. The one that stuck out was happy, well-adjusted, emotionally disturbed. Emotionally disturbed was very common for autistics, for ADD, for Aspies, because that's pretty much what people said they were. But one, I think everyone on the planet is somewhat emotionally disturbed. Two, emotionally disturbed and happy, well-adjusted are kind of oxymoron territory. You can't be both in reality. At least not at the same time. You can be like emotionally disturbed or happy and well-adjusted. Is it possible? Was I too happy? Yeah, to this day, that label has been the enigma of the family to the point where I've actually adopted it as a tagline of mine. I should put it on the channel, the Happy, Well-Adjusted, Emotionally Disturbed YouTube channel. Because that is kind of, I kind of adopted it as my tagline because it was so bizarre. And it kind of still is, so... And to this is kind of why the anti-vax thing kind of gets under my skin, because it feels like a harken back to those days. Teachers didn't want to deal with you when you had autism. Nobody wanted to work with you when you had autism. As they said to my mother when I was a kid, she's only going to end up in an institution. Don't bother. My mom was stubborn as a mule, okay? That wasn't going to happen. And it didn't. I'm married. I'm working on having a family. I graduated college. I have a house. I have friends. I have a social life. I have a YouTube channel. These are things that, those guys would not have said I would have years and years and years ago. So, to think about it, that's, pretty big deal in the long run to just be this person. And honestly, this is kind of the reason why the anti-vax movement really gets on my nerves and really pisses me off, because it feels like it's going back to those guys saying, you're only going to be institutionalized when, me and people like me have worked hard to have normal lives. This is why I also get annoyed with parents when they armchair diagnose their kids with Asperger's or autism, because, or let them get away with shit because they are diagnosed, because that's also destroying the work that, those of us who've had to work hard in the past, dealt with. And by the way, for frame of reference, I'm 31 years old. I was diagnosed at about 2. So that'll give you an idea of basically how long I was in school, how things have changed. Basically, as I grew up, I saw things like YouTube get born. I saw things like Facebook and MySpace. I saw all that. I was one of the first on the internet. I was one of the, my mother was. I was one of the first with a computer. My mom taught me how to use computers. She knew they'd be useful. I had a Commodore. I had all this stuff as a kid. Because, growing up, my parents wanted me to learn all this. And I saw all this change with autism, too. Now celebrities are coming out with their kids who have autism. There are people who There are historical figures people are speculating may have had autism in some way, shape, or form. Think about that. 30 years ago, they wouldn't have dared do that. No! Because autism was a bad thing. You were in an institution if you had autism. Not now. Now you're going to be fine. Get the right treatments. We have all these programs for autistic kids that'll help them cope better. Some of them I think is actually kind of on the coddling side, and I really think they're more tailor-made for low functioning rather than high functioning. But that's just me. That's just me, and to be perfectly honest, I have this issue with all sorts of programs like that, especially for adults, is that it feels like they're all tailor-made for lower functioning anyone instead of higher functioning, and they really need to get a little more personalized because otherwise they don't do as much good as you would like. I've had people get so sick of certain programs that they dropped out of them as soon as possible. I stick through them with the end, but once I was out of their range, I was doing a fucking happy dance. Because they were useless to me in reality. They were of no help. And, even my parents are kind of like, okay. And they always gave me the option to quit, but I didn't want to because I was much less confident than I am now at the time. But that's just me. But it's one of these things where it does stick in my craw. It does sit under my skin. I may actually post this, even though it's like a completely aimless ramble, because of that little story in there. All 30 minutes of it. But yeah, I guess this is kind of like my random thoughts on various things, including my very long thought on why I get so pissy about anti-vaxxers. And, that's pretty much it. That's why I get angry. That's why I get pissed off. Till next time, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye.